had that parent had the knowledge they would not have vaccinated, does that parent have legal redress against the individuals, not the CDC, but the individuals who committed the fraud? So these are the kinds of questions that we're going to be asking.
Yeah, because you see how the big pharma sort of sets themselves up to not have to worry about any future lawsuits and things like that. So they can go out and do these trials as long as they have a 2-minute long commercial telling you all of the possible things that could happen to you, the side effects of whatever sort of drug you're taking, then they're covered. Now, why do you think there is such a veracity, like a voraciousness with which the media tries to shut down any alternative points of view that, you know, maybe vaccines do cause autism, or maybe there are some other alternative treatments for autism, and we need to look at this as a medical issue? Why do you think there's such a pushback?
I think the answer is staring us in the face. And I say this not because it's my supposition, it's because journalists have said this to me themselves. And it's because the pharmaceutical industry own the media. They own the network media, they own the print media, they own the magazines, they pay a lot of dollars in advertising revenues, and they basically write the agenda. They write the script. They write the script for people like Anderson Cooper on this issue. And that's what happens in mainstream media. They're never going to cover it. And HHS have said themselves under Sebelius, do not give equal coverage to the other side of the argument, okay? So you're not going to get the truth in the mainstream media. You'll get it on this show, and you'll get it in a number of alternative media outlets. You will not get it in mainstream media because they are owned.
Right, exactly. And even on shows like The Kelly File on Fox Network, you know, she does a really good job a lot of the time. But here we'll actually play a clip of her, and she's speaking about a doctor, but she never says the doctor's name, and she never talks about what specific case studies and things that what sort of scientific evidence was disputed and shut down. But you see, even the way she speaks, it's in such a way that anyone who would even think about trying to look up this unnamed doctor is just a fool. So let's take a look at that clip.
In defense of those who have not vaccinated their children, they were given bad information years ago by a UK study that came out in 1998. But now there's good information. But now there's good information.
Do you oppose mandatory vaccinations for the children?
No.
And so that's just one example here. They're so afraid to even say your name because they know people are going to go online. They're going to do a little research for themselves. There are plenty of parents out there who aren't just willing to take that mainstream media narrative. You know, these are their children. That's their duty as a parent, is to know everything they can to protect their child. And again, we're finding out how the studies have been fibbed. Or here we have, you know, American taxpayers have paid out more than $2 billion, I think more than that at this point, $2 billion in vaccine lawsuits. They point out which vaccines have the highest win rate in court, you know. So this isn't, the science is not undisputed. Here we have an Italian court, I believe in 2014 of last year, paid for a young boy who had vaccine-related autism. So it's not undisputed. It's not a fact. It's not settled. So why do you think that they would force parents to inoculate their children?
Well, this number now, as you say, it now approaches $3 billion in payouts to people who've been vaccine damaged. And many, many of those are children who've had an acute neurological injury that led to autism. So they've already acknowledged that vaccines cause autism. And it's just playing with words. It's a question not of whether it does happen, it's a question now of the body count. And the body count is far higher than they ever want to concede. And the reason they don't settle many more of these cases is to acknowledge the true level of damage they believe would put people off vaccination. So the lie gets perpetuated and the injustice gets perpetuated. It's not a tragedy, and it's something we'll be discussing at the conference. Mm-hmm. Yes, you're right, in the court in Rimini awarded for MMR vaccine-induced autism last year. We've had at least 83 cases in this country where similar awards have been made, and they've been kept quiet. And they've been made for the last 30 years, but that's not the story that American parents are getting. They're safe and effective. No, they're not.
Yeah.
And William Thompson now comes forward and says they've faked the safety data. And in federal court, we have Merck being sued for fraudulently disguising the efficacy of their vaccine, their mumps vaccine, costing the American taxpayers millions, putting children at risk because mumps in childhood is very safe, child is relatively harmless, and in adults is not. And so what you do is you make people susceptible again. Your vaccine doesn't work. People become susceptible when they're adults, and the disease can be much, much worse. So this is not just a question of efficacy, of protection, it's a question of safety. Merck are in court over that at the moment. The judge refused to throw the case out, and they are going to go to trial. So the very plank of their argument, the very plank of what they're trying to push these mandates through state by state by state at the moment of safety and efficacy have both fallen away. They're both rotten, and they have no foundation. So these bills are dangerous. Not only do they inevitably violate the rights of parents, but they are frankly dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, California is now talking about doing away altogether with allowing parents to opt out of getting their children for the religious exemptions or what have you. I know a lot of other states are toying with this bill as well to just take away the power of the parent to make that decision for their children. You know, but I'm sitting right here with you, and like I can sense that you're very much at peace. I mean, even for a man, a doctor who's had his life's work and your name sort of dragged through the mud, you're at peace with your research and what you've done. And I feel like, you know you're going to be vindicated.
Yes, vindication is a luxury that I really don't dwell upon very much. There is a much more important issue, and that is how to protect the children of this country from this extraordinary onslaught, and that has to happen. I look at, Nelson Mandela was in prison in solitary confinement for 27 years. I've only been in this fight for 20 years, and I still have my freedom. So I have no complaints. And if I might feel sorry for myself on occasions, then the next time I see a child with autism, I think I don't have a problem.
Right.
So it's a constant reminder of what the true issues are in this. It's not about me. It's not about that work that was done years ago. This is just a public relations rhetoric to try and dismiss the issue when in fact they know it's real. They know, people at the highest levels know this is real. William Thompson told Gerberding, the head of the CDC, about these data, and she ignored him, and she went off to Merck on a huge salary to look after their vaccine division. So that is how insidiously dangerous and corrupt this system is, and that's what must be exposed. And I will not be going away until that happens.
Yeah, I mean, it's just incredible how whatever amount of money can be worth selling your soul and, harming millions of the world's children, and just being okay with that because you're going to get a golden parachute at some point. And all of these people must realize that the truth will come out sooner or later, especially with the internet, as long as we can continue getting this information out there. So important. So are you aware of you mentioned that some of the things that we're going to be learning at this summit are some alternative therapies and things like that. You mentioned.
Well, therapies that are now becoming more and more mainstream, gastrointestinal investigation and intervention in children with autism. One of the most consistent findings in research now in autism is the link with the bowel disease, a bowel disease that was described by us at the Royal Free way back in 1998 and tragically subverted because it was synonymous with vaccine injury, therefore it couldn't be true. How many children suffered, how many children were in pain for many, many years who could have been treated. Now that's coming to the forefront, and so dietary interventions, nutritional interventions, supplementation, all of these things to heal the child and then allow other things like remedial therapies with applied behavioral analysis, behavioral interventions to have their full effect. Because if a child's in pain, they can't concentrate. But if they're physically well, then you'll get the most out of all of the other interventions that you use.
Isn't it amazing how it always goes back to the diet? I mean, that's the part of the Hippocratic Oath for doctors they have to take to know that it starts there with the diet, and yet now we're told really the only way you can find the healing is through these medicines, which are mostly all plant-derived anyway. So it's just kind of interesting that it all sort of circles back around, and I'm really glad that is something that's becoming more prevalent, and people do have an option. They do see that they're not alone. There are other people out there like them, and they don't have to be afraid. Is there anything you would want to say to parents out there who are maybe kind of feeling the pressure of their peers, or is there any resources for them?
Yes, you're not alone. Come to the summit, listen to the experts, and you will realize that not only are your instincts right, you're on the right track, but there are many others with you whose children have gained great benefits from that sort of intervention. So It's a painful learning process. Yes, it's largely based in treating the gut, and as a gastroenterologist, I find that perfectly acceptable. And nutritional and dietary in origin. We are what we eat, and that was never more so, particularly in the face of things like GMO crops and pesticides.
Yeah.
So I think that parents should be reassured that this is actually becoming more and more mainstream. It's just that the mainstream has to be dragged kicking and screaming, not least of which it doesn't serve the pharmaceutical industry interests to have these so-called alternative but entirely natural treatments that are at hand.
Right, which people have to understand how heavy the hand of big pharma is in every sector, and especially the media, but then of course your schools and then your doctors and the advice. I mean, we have a story about a lawsuit that's going on right now, a nursing student saying that her college instructors were telling the students 2 particular ways that they could intimidate their patients into getting vaccines. Oh, well, if you don't get your vaccine, you're going to lose your Medicaid, and then you'll be responsible for all of your doctor bills. If you're a new father, you're not going to be able to see your newborn if you're not up to date on vaccines. And of course, you know, the shots you could never be immunized by the time, if they give you the shot, okay, now go in and see your baby. In fact, you're probably going to bring measles or something in there with your newborn baby who hasn't built up its immunity yet. And of course, we've also got a story that it just came out now that, in fact, Monsanto, these companies, they knew the dangers of glyphosate 30 years ago, and they covered up the science and how glyphosate was bad for your gastrointestinal and how it's being torn up. And now people are having all these, you know, celiac disease and things like that, or autism-related diseases. So the fact that we can have a mainstream media really pushing that the science is here, I just feel like these people are they got the blood on their hands, you know?
Yeah, this is an absolute disgrace. I mean, vaccination policy, public health policy depends upon the public confidence. You have to have the trust of the public. What kind of system is it that coerces you by threatening you, by lying to you in this case, by making up lies about what you will lose?
Right.
Or in Australia now doing exactly that, taking away $11,000 worth of child benefits per year if you don't get fully vaccinated. What kind of coercion? That's not based on public confidence in vaccination policy. That's a disaster. You have lost the public. If that's what you have to do, if you have to force people to get vaccinated, you are on a road to nowhere.
Right, absolutely. Well, Dr. Wakefield, thank you so much for joining us. This is going to be the Give Autism a Chance Summit, happening Saturday, April 18th here in Austin, Texas at the Domain. It's going to be a really great event happening all day. I really think it's interesting that you're going to have the siblings out there. I think that is so important because so many parents do feel alone, and you never really even think about what the other kids might be going through or what they might be feeling. So,
and one more important comment, and that is the hotel have given hugely discounted rates on rooms if they're booked in the next 2 days. So it's a fabulous hotel, very cheap rooms. So if you are going to come to the Westin on Saturday, book now.
Very nice. Okay, so some deep hotel discounts. Very good to know. So we'll have the link up there. And that is the Give Autism a Chance Summit taking place this Saturday here in Austin. You can find out more at theautismtrust.org. Thank you all for tuning in to the show tonight. If you're watching us on YouTube, please become a subscriber. And you can also head over to prisonplanet.tv and share your username and password with up to 20 people at the same time. We'll see you guys here tomorrow at 7 p.m. Central.
Used since before the days of the Roman Empire to support the body's natural systems and enhance overall health. Introducing the new InfoWarsLife.com oil of oregano formulation, a highly advanced nutraceutical form of this key herb that has been traditionally used by civilizations for thousands of years to promote health. We have now procured the most high quality and potent forms of oregano oil on the market, sourced from top leading manufacturers to ensure a concentrated level of bioactive ingredients. Extracted directly from the wild herb and sealed in easy-to-use capsules, you will no longer need to endure the burning of liquid oregano on the tongue. Wild crafted from the Mediterranean oregano species that experts agree is one of the most powerful and most challenging to acquire. This winter season, it's more important than ever to secure this true form of oil of oregano. Now available in our limited first run at InfoWarsLife.com. That's InfoWarsLife.com or call 888-253-3139.
You are watching the InfoWars.